Ooh, we are live. Okay, so the first thing, it looks a little bit crazy, but the microphones are used for the people and the internet. Okay, so it doesn't mean that I need microphone to just speak to you guys. It's just we need that to be the people will hear us. Okay. So my name is Maciej Lelusz. I'm a co-leader of AWS User Group KRK, 10 years, well, 8 years. I have no bloody idea, you know. And today, debut, the first time.
Yep. I'm Paweł Kusiński. I'm here for the first time. Usually I was on the meetings side, but like they came to me, do you want to co-host it?
Yeah, do you want to co-host?
Why not?
I want you.
So
you get
I'm
a car.
Here.
You get a car.
Yeah. And what I can say, I'm a little bit different than most of you because I'm breaking things, not making them.
Yeah.
Because I'm security researcher and
The worst.
also community builder from AWS. So
okay, I need
start.
to check. You know, yeah, I need to check because you know my memory is like me a little rusty. So 65th meetup, 65th meetup, and today we are at new place because usually we are running on Barca, you know, like a boat on the river, a Vistula River, and today we are because of our partners on in the new place. So yeah, Codet and Nix. I think we should thank you guys for make this happen. Okay, the most important thing maybe not the most important, but let's say that it's pretty important when you think about it. So we have some gadgets from our sponsors that we will give to the people who will ask the most quality questions. Okay, so just don't raise your hand as like, what's your name, right? So you will not get a prize, right? But if you will ask, you know, some deep dive, nice question, then probably you will get some nice things from our partners, okay?
I think that would be first meetup when I won't win them.
Yeah, you're the guy. You know why we choose him? Because he won all the gadgets, okay? And it was just no fun for everybody else. When he was on the meetup, it was like no chance to get anything, right? So now I think we can start slowly. You ready? Perfect. So let me check one thing because I always forgetting. So I need to be sure that I talk about it.
I remember we'll get some knowledge about step functions.
Yep, step function. But one thing more. Let me check. Okay, we will have two sessions today, and the most important part, none of the sessions will be online. So all the speakers are here, which is good. You know how is it? After the 2 years of COVID or 4 years of COVID, how you want to calculate that, or 3.5. You know, nobody likes online sessions anymore. So everybody's here. You can grab them, ask the questions. Come on, buddy. It's your time. I will give you the stage because I can never stop to talk. Thank you very much.
Good luck.
All right, cool. Let me figure out all the questions in the agenda and the slides. So probably we can switch to the slides and I'll show the presentation right now. Good. The best slide for today, it's me. And you see right now I have mustache. Then the seniority level grows a lot. And a few words about myself. So then you understand who I am, what kind of question you can ask me, what kind of question you can ask me afterwards, once I finish my presentation. So first of all, my name is Andrii. I'm a solution architect in N-iX, working in a solution group. That's the part of the company, and we are working as a consultancy part. We are digesting different R&D activities and the questions, and working within the discovery phases, pre-sales, up-sales, and so on. I'm working about 9 years in IT, developing the solutions, and 3 of them working as a solution architect in N-iX. Yeah, different certifications, social architect by the AWS, also the Software Engineering Institute by the Carnegie Mellon, the professional solution architecture. Right, and by the way, we are running the Architecture University in N-iX. In case you're interested in that one, you can ask me afterwards. We can discuss that. I'm lecturing there, and that might be the good chance for you in case you would like to enter the solution architecture with N-iX. Yeah, few words about N-iX more, and I can continue with the next slides. Right. So about the agenda and what we will discuss today. So probably you already read the title of the presentation. And in regards to our topic for today, that will be the BPMN. AWS Step Functions and how we can integrate them and how we can interpret them together. And the topics for today would be actually to understand what is that, what these BPMN means, what can the AWS Step Function offers you as alternative to that one. Understand, maybe go to deep dive into the step functions and what are the knowledge within the N-iX and what we get during the collaboration with these kind of the service and the collaboration with the client that we implement there. We will go into the non-functional requirements. We will review the state machine example. Here we'll just go the high-level review because probably it's not an issue to check for you that just to go into the AWS console and just write it down quickly. The interpretation of the BPMN, how I actually can direct the step functions and make the actual BPMN out of them. We will review some pricing examples and what would be the next steps for you actually in case you're interested in this topic and get more into that one. And then the Q&A session, so we'll have time actually to ask them, but don't hesitate actually to ask questions during the presentation. I'm open to answer them. And by the way, in case any one of you has some questions before we start and maybe you expect after this presentation to digest some topic, just feel free to shout that. And so we can review them, or maybe I can just bring more insights during the presentation about the question you have right now. Cool. I'll just speak with myself. Right. So before I get into the slides, yeah, go ahead. that will be our next slide. We will review that. Great question, actually. Yeah, that's a quality question. You see, you already understand the agenda, and you did the homework. That's great. We will get into this one in a second. Before we get to that, I will just outline what we did. What is the use case that we run in N-iX in regards to the overall topic that we will go through. So for the one of the company, which is the cloud-based e-commerce organization that provides the payments for the customers and also the billing strategies, we've had to utilize we had to utilize some of the BPMN like flows and engines to provide them their functional requirements, also some of the non-functional requirements we do also review. And actually the step functions was the solution for us. So in case you have any other alternatives and you work with some others, it will be good to have the conversation afterwards so we can review this together. Right. Let's start with the BPMN, what it stands for, and that's the business process model and notation. What actually why it's needed and why we are talking about it at all. So in case we're talking about a big enterprise, usually we have lots of different positions and roles within the company that actually provides the view on a product. And one of these views are the product owner or the business analysis view. And for these kind of people, they usually use the this kind of annotations to provide the flow and its states and the components that they utilize within this flow. So actually, you can reach the result of some of the user functionality. So for instance, here we have the booking mechanism. And for you, some of you, in case you're familiar with sagas, it might interpret that at some point. But that actually the business process by itself. To understand, all right, we would like to book the flight, but first we book in the hotel, the car, flight. I'm sorry. It's right. One moment. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm sorry for that. That's fine. In case you enter the N-iX, you won't have this kind of issues. This the regular deployment updates and so on. So in case you would like to book any of these parts and finalize the steps, you have the compensational transactions for these. So in case you couldn't book the car, for sure you need to cancel the hotel and so on. So this kind of the process that outlines how the user flow is succeeded, and in case some issue happened in the meanwhile, how it's reverted. And usually the stakeholders that are into these kind of the workflows to review them, to take a part of their development, these are the business analysts, product owners, software engineers, and other stakeholders, the stakeholders of the companies that actually utilize this product. So that's about the BPMN and how it is utilized. Then we can get into the step functions. And here it's the representation of the design workflow, how it's designed on these two left items on a slide. And the right one is the execution workflow and how you can review how it was executed. So on this scenario and in this example, I've just replicated what we had on the previous slide, but with the help of the step functions. And why we've added this this left item here, the design workflow, actually to showcase that right now we are not talking about the business personas in a company. Probably the business and analytics won't be able to use them because that's more technical area of the utilization. And here we have the usability to utilize different AWS services within our workflow, design them, do pretty the same that we could do with the BPMN notation. And right now we are talking not about the business stakeholders, but rather about the technical stakeholders and the guys who actually implemented or designed it, or actually translated to the business and review maybe with some business stakeholders at the end of the day. So that would be the solution architects who actually design this workflow, the engineers that implement some part of this workflow or the parts of the execution workflow, the DevOps engineer that actually manage the deployment, configure the continuous integration and the deployment process for that, and operational teams that can get to the log view on the top right item there and review, okay, how the execution went, why we failed with that, or maybe some result of the execution was incorrect, and they can review this using this kind of the tool set that's provided by the AWS. All right, so now we are familiar with both these items. We understand that they are different, and the use case for us within the client that I'm talking about, this use case that we have actually wasn't concentrated on the AWS step function, but the step function was the result of the research and the analysis of the solution that we use for them. So the main concept was to provide for the end stakeholders, for the companies that would buy the product, the functionality to configure their business flows. Having this in mind, we understand that we cannot provide the AWS step function by itself because we won't grant access for any business stakeholder to the AWS console, so they won't learn how to use it. That's why the presentation will be about how to get into the point and how we can use that and grant the access at certain level for the business stakeholders to utilize this kind of the functionality for them. Right, talking about the non-functional requirements, I've used some of the non-functional requirements that you can get once you just enter the AWS console and try to use the step functions. There are two different types of the step functions. There's a standard and express step functions. The main difference for you would be actually that the express step functions are used for the short-term operations that you can execute up to the 5 minutes. I haven't added all of the requirements on purpose here, so then you can listen to me, and I'll just put down a few interesting items here once we finish with those. So the maximum duration, what does it mean actually that you can run this step function for the 1 year, for instance? The standard step function could run for 1 year, and once you started like today, and 1 year later on, it could be finalized. So during this flow, you can keep the state of the functionality, you can keep the state of the workflow. So then, like the last step could finalize for the long time. On the other side, we have the express that should be finished up to the 5 minutes. Keeping this in mind, you probably understand that you need to pay more for the standard step function by default. but that's a tricky part that we will also review later on. And we have also two interesting properties here: the execution start rate and the state transition rate. And these are the soft constraints you can actually discuss with the AWS, and they can increase them. So that means how many step function you can run in a second. And when we are talking about the step function, we are talking about the entire region that we select the step function, because they are automatically scaled by the availability zones. So you can't think, okay, I can just scale them in a different availability zone, so then I can have higher execution side or start rate. It won't work in that way for you. And express step functions, of course, has higher execution start rate. The state transition rate is about the states. You recall the part when we talked about the booking hotel, booking the car, and so on, and the changing of the state from the one step to another one is actually the state transition part. And in a second, for the standard one, you can use like 4,000, and nearly unlimited for the express. Now the more interesting part, and the part that I love in AWS, that I can predict my pricing easily, especially for the express step functions. So it's really easy to calculate how much I need to pay. Actually, you need to test it all the time to say for sure how much you will need to calculate. With the standard step function, it's much more easier to do that, because you can just understand, or you can draw the BPMN views first with the business analytics, and then you can understand, okay, how many transition states approximately you will have, and understand how many you'll need to pay for the transition or the step function by itself. Right. In regards to the pricing and express part, so there is the duration price per gigabyte second. Why is that there is a range? Is because first you need to pay more for the first hours of the usage, and then once you use longer and you have longer gigabyte hours per month, you pay less, then because it will be cheaper for you in case you use more gigabyte hours within the resources that you use. So we'll have the example in regards to pricing and the standard one. And in regards to the express, just the good calculations that I found out, and we tried by ourselves, that in case your step function runs more than 38 seconds, it will be cheaper for you to use the standard one, because the longer you run the express function, the higher cost it has. The usual thing for the serverless computation, in case the more serverless you go, then it should be shorter execution time. So then you're better within the pricing part. Then you have the execution history that the standard provides you, like the nice logs that I showed you previously. Within the express, you need to catch everything in a CloudWatch in case you would like to use them, or any other logging mechanism you have on your stack. Then there is a part with execution semantics, which is pretty crucial in case you have the business critical functionality, like the execution only once for the standard, that you know that it execute exactly one time. And within Express, it's at least once. So in case you have, for instance, booking, you can't use Express, or you need to add additional functionality for the checking mechanism or whatever. There is also one more point within the service integration, which is pretty obvious for the Express functions. You can't use the functionality within the steps to await something for a long time, because then probably you won't fit 5 minutes, or the callback functionality. So then you're able to pass the cancellation token somewhere and wait for it, because you won't be able just to fit into the 5 minutes. The availability part for the which is pretty weird for me. I hope that would be 4 nines. It's like 3 nines availability for the step function within the region. In case of like to have higher, you need to add additional region, of course. Then you can do the DNS zoning and so on. So you can get more availability, like 4 nines with additional region. But of course, you will need to pay more for the additional infrastructure. And one critical part here is the payload size, which means here the state that you hold within the step function should be less than 256 kilobytes. And in case I would like to hold big object within the states, it will be pretty impossible for you. But there is a new, there was like recently, like two years ago, the update from the AWS, so then you're capable to do the batching for more than the 256 kilobytes. But that's like the tricky part. You'll have the link later on via the QR code in case you're interested to digest this more later on. Yeah, right. And in regards to the parts that I've also set for you, that from the non-functional requirements, for myself, it was interesting. Okay, we have the state transition within this functionality and this service, and what kind of the delay do we have from the AWS to change the transition from one state to another. And for the standard, it's higher than Express, of course, and it's for the Express, it's like 20 milliseconds, which is fine. And for the standards, like 500 milliseconds, like half of a second, which is a lot for the state transition. But it's like the average. Of course, it could be less sometimes because it's serverless. We can't predict exactly. So that are the non-functional requirements. And the non-functional requirements for our solution that we had and we were designing, they were really soft. And that was in overall the execution of 10K workflows per month. They are long by itself. They take about 60 seconds to execute. They have the batch processing, some kind of the manual workflow to accept, and so on. The AWS Step Function fits great. But still, the overall non-functional requirements that we had to elaborate on were soft for us. And of course, the rich flexibility for the customization, and that's why the step function was the solution. Right. From another hand, we were also selecting for another product, which is the open source BPMN modeling solution. Probably, in case you heard about that, you know that, so we can discuss it later on. But because we are on AWS User Group, I won't disclose that right now. Also, from the non-functional requirements, the one additional point that I've took a look on was the PII data protection. So from the AWS, they say, okay, all our infrastructure and our services are compliant. They have a great list of the compliance that you can use. You can say, right, we are PCI compliant, for instance, in case I would like to process the payments. But there is a but, of course. And in case I would like to use the standard functions, you would need to care about the state transition and the logs, because by default, the step functions actually trace the log. In case you use the standard one and entering the AWS console, you can check, okay, what was the payload within the states. And to cover that one, you can utilize the solution to track the PII data into some intermediary state within the, let's say, the Amazon Elastic Cache, and care about by yourself, care about the encryption and the transit and encryption and the rest. So then you can utilize the PII data within your steps, but using the third-party component, let's say in that way. Another one, yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, so for instance, you use the external tool. Let's say you're shipping something, and you have supply chain mechanism in overall. So the company, the product that we talk about is not the supply chain, but I think the supply chain is the great example for the step functions. And you use several parties actually to ship the let's say box from the USA to the Poland. And for shipping for the ships, for the airplanes, you use different parties actually to execute the shipping. And you need to send the request for them, and you need to wait for the reply. And that could be a long-running mechanism. It could take like the month, for instance, yeah. And you understand, in case you have the long trip, it might take a long time. And sometimes the ship is you can miss the ship, and the company can miss it. So then that can take lots of time. But actually, in a step function, you can utilize one of the mechanisms to to start new execution and make it like infinite, like for another year. But of course, probably you won't use it, and you need to run everything as quickly as possible for the business. But the supply chain part is like the great example for you to understand why it could take that much time. Yeah, no worries. Good. So another part with the step functions that you might think, yeah, that there is some mechanism already is the versioning, because at a certain point in time you will need to care about that once you get into the production state. Explicitly, step function doesn't give you any functionality for the versioning. You will need to do it by yourself. You need to define the mechanism by yourself for the versioning, this strategy would be really like fitted for you. Here is the good example that with the out-of-the-box utilization of the Amazon API gateway that is integrated that might be integrated as a preliminary step within the AWS Step Function, it's like, let's say, it's a blue-green deployment here. Of course, you'll need to put much more efforts rather than just linking to different version of the step function and putting the weight within them. But still, what we have here, you're able to put at the first step the Amazon gateway, the same Amazon gateway for the two version of the step functions. You can make the change, and then you can run the step function. For this slide, I also added the additional, let's say, level of the step function that just outlined for you, that you can have multiple dimensions of the step function. You can run one step function in another. Also, this kind of the solution overcomes some of the constraints that the step functions also have on their own. But yeah. So that one more additional non-functional requirement that you will need to think about once using the step function, but that's kind of the usual solution you will need to deal with any of the product. Good. So then the example of the state machine, I'll be quick here because it's easy to try. There are lots of videos, tutorials in YouTube with the people like myself showing you how to use the step functions. Just outline. So that's on the top left corner. That's the first item. How we enter the payload for the Lambda function to execute it. So from the environment variables, we select the booking ID, pass it to the Lambda function. Then on the top right corner, we have the Lambda function by itself that let's say pass data into gets the data from the database. You can use it there and return the response. And actually, the afterwards, you have the step how you map the result out of the Lambda execution to the state that you have in the step functions. And then you can utilize the state anywhere within any step within the step function. And of course, you can override the state by this kind of the actions. Right, then the slide that actually concludes and showcases how we end up with the step functions, using them for the product that I've mentioned previously. I cannot name more details because of the NDA, but maybe afterwards, once I drink more beer. Here we have the interpretation of the BPMN using the step function. And here we have the we can read this slide from left to right. We have the part with the React that utilizes the BPMN IO. That's the product that you can embed into the web application and have the BPMN functionality there and model that. Then we have two steps. It's here outlined as Lambda functions, but you can use any of it. It could be the microservices, it could be single service, anything you want. You just outlined here just for you to understand the example. We have the first functionality of the first step in this pipeline to map from the BPMN to the ASL, which means the Amazon state language. Then we have the step actually to update the changes in the AWS account within the step function using the AWS CLI. The tricky point here is that you won't be able to cover the functionality that the BPMN products give you from the scratch. from their own capabilities. So that's why you will have some limited functionality for sure. For instance, you won't grant the access on the front end for the business stakeholders to utilize the AWS services. Probably you even don't want to do that, but within the AWS Step Functions, you can do that, of course. And the use cases for that would be to review the workflows. So, for instance, we have these, we have the usual product. For sure, all of you, once you're working on some products, you have the workflows, happy path scenarios, the error scenarios, and so on. And by covering them, you're not sure in case I understood everything correctly and I understood the business correctly. Okay, I have accepted criteria, so I did the functionality in the correct way, but I would like still to review myself with my product owner, for instance. Then having this kind of the solution in place, using the step functions and the BPMN IO, you can represent and your user flow that you did within the step function for the product owners. Also, the customization of the existing workflows and a limited or predefined BPMN components usage. So these two scenarios actually covers the partial customization of the workflows in case we have the predefined components there and predefined integrations. So then we can grant these permissions for the business stakeholders, and they can do that. And we can bring to the world flexible, customizable solution, and any business stakeholders can use it with the rich functionality. And we have several constraints. Even with this solution, we have the mitigation strategy for that, but still, you won't be able to do that on the production, of course. You won't be able to, or probably I won't recommend you to grant access for the edit of the step function or your business workflows on a production because no one would test that. You won't have the regression testing. Even you have like the automated test in place, you validated it before. Still, I would try you to say that it will be better to have like the separate environment for the business stakeholders to model the business workflows, validate that they're run some additional steps with the regression testing or whatever, so then you're sure that your product is not broken before you get to the production state. Of course, the state usage. On the previous scenarios, on the previous slides, you've seen that so there is a flexible model of using the state, customize it, reach it with the additional steps in the step function. But here, probably you won't expose that for everyone, of course, for the business stakeholders, because I hardly imagine that they can use the environment variables and map something. Of course, the usage of the blasters that I mentioned previously, and the versioning and a change log. With these kind of solutions, when we want to have the flexible workflows, we also we need to care about the versioning of the workflow by itself. For this one, we are using the version control system on the background. So then you can keep your change log there. You can review it afterwards. It already provides you different merging strategies that you can use out of the box from the version control system. Within this step, that's the merge step function update before you sync changes with your AWS account. Right. And in regards to the summary of the cases, and for instance, the customization of the existing workflows or limiter or predefined BPM components, we have additional slide that just showcases that within the BPMN IO, you're able actually to add your custom components there, or even remove all of the components that are in place and just define your own. So then it can bring for the business stakeholders the flexibility and functionality that you're actually providing by your product. Right, and an additional part is actually here that showcases the mapping of the BPMN processes to the AWS Step Function processes. I won't read them completely. You can read it, and also within the resources that I will provide you guys, there is a link to the article that the guy did that actually did the big research on that and provided a part of this mapping. The part of the mapping here is just to cover the crucial functionality within the BPMN, but for sure there will be more from your side for your special needs on your product. And also we had the same and there would be big work needed to be done to do the discovery part before starting the implementation, to outline, okay, what kind of the processes I will bring, or the custom components of custom models within the BPMN IO or any other tool that you will use for the visualization, to provide the functionality for the business stakeholders actually to build their workflows. Now about the pricing. So for our use case, we have here the sample of the functionality and execution. So that's for the runtime and how much we pay right now and we expect to pay. And maybe we'll do some quick math together to not to multiply like 0.0025 to something, but an overall with the comparison with the another runtimes that we can utilize or another orchestration providers that we can use. So for the 100 transitions, we have approximately this amount of money for the step functions. So that is the 100 transition within the single workflow. We have like about 10 lambdas, and the average execution of the entire workflow, including the lambdas and the step functions, is about 60 seconds. As I said, that's our use case is unique. Of course, it's yours, and 60 seconds, that's a lot to execute something. And we have the batch operations there to run through each iteration and do this or that functionality. And our price that we predict or try to keep is like 100 execution, and the price for that is like $300. And that's pretty low price for this kind of execution and runtime for the infrastructure. There's not complete infrastructure, of course, but from the experience that I have running some similar operation within the Kubernetes, having the some microservices, maybe additional availability zone for the redundancy, we would pay more for this kind of amount of the operations. Of course, in case we go higher with the execution rate, and the execution amount, will need to pay more. But for the overall understanding, in case you have these approximate number of the execution per month, it would be good for you to utilize the Lambda function and the step functions with the serverless approach, so you will save some money for that. Yeah, by the way, another solution that actually provides the out-of-the-box capabilities for the BPMN, it's kind of the, in case I'm correct, for the default user without no additional decreases in the price, is about the 50K. It's a ready solution. Of course, you will need to pay for the development of the product, but in the term of the 5 years of the utilization, probably it will be better to use this kind of the approach. Right. Good. Then in regards to the next steps, in several days, there will be another presentation of pretty similar topic, actually. Once researching the internet and maybe finding out some interesting information for you, I've just seen that there would be this kind of the event. I'm sure that will be interesting for you in case you utilize already step functions, or you would like to just take a look on this one, because that would be the step function with the open source BPMN tool set. For another kind of the use cases, once you do not need to showcase for the business stakeholders actually the BPMN process, because once you would like to, usually these open source solutions are paid for that. Good. Right, so you can check out the resources that I prepared for you. There are links for the lots of topics that I've included here that I read during the researches that I did previously, the link for the event that you can also join, and the link to the research that I also used previously for the mapping phase of the BPMN to the AWS Step Functions. Good. Now the time for you guys.
Okay,
yeah,
so
go ahead.
Just raise a hand.
It's here.
Here, first row.
Thanks for a great presentation. Thank you very much. Question, and number of questions depends on your answer.
All right.
So first of all, $300 for 100 executions, 100,000 executions sounds a little bit a lot.
It's a lot,
right? Question is, did you consider any other option here? And if yes, let me just spoil the fun. And if yes, how BPMN fits in that other option?
All right, yeah. So in case you take a look at another option of the BPMN, we also take a look on the Camunda that you need to pay a lot for that, for the license, in case you would like to expose the BPMN process for the stakeholders. In case you do not expose that and you do not use the commercial license, you can use the free one to actually manage and orchestrate the business workflows internally in your development team. So then you'll pay 0 for the orchestration process. Of course, you will need to pay for the runtime and infrastructure. And using the products like still behind the scenes, you will need to use something to orchestrate the infrastructure like the Kubernetes, or maybe it also might be the serverless. In case it will be the serverless, you will have like this price minus the step function price, but also the price for the hosting of the Camunda, in case you would like to do that by yourself. Right, so for the Camunda, in case we talk about that, once we don't show it, it's 0, but you pay for the infrastructure cost to host it. Once you use the commercial license, it's a lot. It's like 50K months. It could be cheaper for you in case you'll have special contract with them, but still, that's a lot. Once talking about the Kubernetes, for instance, and having the region covered with that and a good resiliency, then I think it won't be less than $500 to have the infrastructure, like several instances of the EC2s and so on. Maybe with the Fargate, for our case, it would be cheaper. But then we won't be able to have these nice views and the workflows to map the states.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question?
Yes, and it answers. And so you answered my question, so I have another one.
Okay, go ahead.
Now, if you talk about BPMN and step functions,
yeah.
I agree that they are greatly working together to visualize business flow.
That's right.
But if you go there before collecting non-functional requirements,
right,
you may lose the momentum, right? You need to come back to
That's correct.
gathering these requirements again.
That's
so
right.
In which step of the process, of the discussion, of the discovery phase with the customer, you start thinking about this?
Yeah, that's a great question, and you already answered partially because saying that there is a discovery phase. So the product by itself, of course, we cannot design by our own opinion, because I like the BPMN and the step functions. That doesn't make sense, of course, because in case I would do that way, my infrastructure would cost a lot all the time, because I would like to have great resiliency, 5 nines availability, and so on. That doesn't make sense. Business doesn't need it. For sure, there is the sequence of steps that we need to do. Then first of all, we are understanding the business goals. That's the first step we need to do. Understand, okay, what we are targeting. Maybe we are targeting just the internal customers satisfaction, or getting on a higher position just to create a product. Whenever the product it is, whenever a non-functional requirement targets, we don't know. But usually the target for the business is to get more money. All of us understand it, and to keep to pay less for the infrastructure for the development, get more money out of the consumers. So that's the business goals we define. Then the next step is to define the use cases, roles within the system. So now we understand, okay, what kind of the stakeholders uses the product, what kind of the high-level features we have there. Then we are getting into the use cases that we have. So now we on a high level understand what kind of the functions this product provides for the different roles within the system. And only afterwards we just get to the non-functional requirements that you mentioned. And we need to have like several quality attribute workshops with our stakeholders to understand, okay, what are the high priority, low priority, and so on. Because as I mentioned previously, we had really soft non-functional requirements. Probably with the harder constraints, harder non-functional requirements, the decision process would be slightly more complicated. I don't know in case we'll go with this AWS Step Function, but with our case, yeah, that's a great solution for us. So we have the non-functional requirements. Besides the non-functional requirements, we also need to collect the significant architecture requirements, the other ones like the constraints. So now we have the constraints also within the system. For instance, what kind of the products are used there. Maybe the main cloud provider is Azure or whatever. So then, okay, we can't use the step functions. Only afterwards, having the use cases, having the non-functional requirements, we might think about the high-level concept architecture, and then getting into the implementation. Because the step function is the implementation. All of us understands that. And understanding the need, we need the BPMN is like the step after the non-functional requirements. We outline, okay, this kind of the product would cover our functional, non-functional requirements, and we are capable to achieve that. So on the stage, once we have the high-level architecture done, we have the business decision done that, okay, this kind of the product will satisfy our needs. We get into the implementation details. We understand, okay, the step functions are easier go. That's good? Go.
All right. There is one question from the Julia. What about tracing, as it's the most important in such systems?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the step function by itself, in case we use the standard one, provides the automatic tracing already. So once you executed your workflow, or the workflow is in the middle of the execution, you can check, okay, what kind of the payload we had within these steps, what kind of the result each step retrieves. So we can track that easily. In case talking about the express functions, that will be for our own to decide what we would like to store in a tracing functionality. But as I shown previously, the CloudWatch would be the great tool for you actually to trace the logs. Of course, adjusting it with maybe some correlation identifiers and so on. So then you can easily select that.
Thank you very much. There is another question from Julia as well. Have you considered temporal I/O?
That's a great one, because recently my colleague visited the conference, probably the Money or something like that, and the temporal I/O actually had the stand there. And we had a discussion recently on a business trip with this colleague about this product. And this one is actually something for the engineers. So that might be like the Camunda with the no commercial license. And that's a great solution in case you would like to check it out. I also recommend you that so then you have the more knowledge about this kind of the processes, but you won't expose that for the business stakeholders. So still you can use it. That's a great tool for you. But in case you need to expose something for the stakeholders, then you still need to do the BPMN I/O or something to use that. And by the way, that's an open source solution. You can also check it out. Right?
Okay. Any more questions? Here's one.
Yeah, that's the second question from Amateur. What's that BPMN I/O? What's the output of that BPMN XML file? How does
right?
What does it do?
So the output is actually the XML, and there you have stated your processes, the steps. What is the first step? How the process runs, and the BPMN I/O is just the tool, like the library you can embed into your system. So then you have this nice view. Then you can drag and drop the buttons like in a draw I/O. Probably use that designing something, and within the draw you also have the BPMN notation. You can use it. And the BPMN I/O just have this part of the notation that you can use for the workflows. And you can embed it in your site and have like the two-ways binding to get the data or to customize it.
Okay, so it's not just for visualizing, you actually do actions with that BPMN, right?
So yeah, you can consume events out of there on your UI, like the React. You can pass there the customizations you have. Because as I shown, you have this star kitty in the BPMN I/O, so you actually pass this customization there. But as a result, probably you will get the file, and that would be the XML, and then you will need to parse it for yourself to store the workflow in your system.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, this guy wants something out of the presence. That's right. Yeah, that's correct. Right. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
If I would like you to simplify the definition of BPMN, what you would like to say? Just like UML mind map similar or something else for normal people?
Yeah. So that would be the algorithm. For the normal people, that's the algorithm. So you have the sequence of the steps you need to achieve to succeed some operation. So for instance, you have the algorithm to sort the array, right? And the income result is actually pass any array, random array, and the output result you have the sorted array. But in the middle you have various steps actually to get to the sorted array. And within the BPMN is the same algorithm, but on a high level for the business operations.
Any more questions?
Good. Go. Thank you.
So if you want to take a part in the quiz, there are some vouchers for AWS to get, right? So this is your course. So as you want, there are going to be some questions, more or less easy for you if you listen. If you just participate, well, sorry for that, but some vouchers, so you can run the step functions for like 3 seconds for them. No, I'm just kidding. So basically, right now we'll go directly. You are ready, Wojciech? Almost. The connection, come on, everything is wireless right now. So if you want to just take a chance, and Wojciech, we wait only for you.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel the pressure. I feel the pressure.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Just
We can count like 10, 9.
Exactly. So don't worry. All right. So it helps, right? It helps. Perfect. Very much. Nice.
I came prepared. Look, my own.
Try something. Something went wrong. So try again.
Yeah.
Put it to sleep. Just everybody see your name right now. My password, your everything. So yeah, perfect. So Wojciech came to us from another sheet. You will talk about what you want to talk about, Wojciech?
Something about networking.
Networking, right? Who cares about networking? Right? It's not the class. It's like networking is already there, right? So we can. Okay. I think you can put it on. Perfect. The stage is yours. Just don't forget to put the microphone that nobody hears.
Yeah.
But there are people hearing you. So there are questions. Yeah. So it's not ChatGPT anymore. All right.
Like somebody can ask ChatGPT question.
Yes, you can ask the question. Cool. The stage is yours, sir.
So good luck. A little technical break.
Yeah. A lot of people left. You don't believe in me, that's fine.
They will. They will come back. They always going back.
Is it on? Like, is it on?
Does it help to turning it on?
Yeah.
It usually
To turn it on,
it
right?
usually helps, but that's not a general advice, right?
Let's down a little bit. Let's start it because later on after Wojciech's session, we'll have time to chill out and finish all the vouchers. So don't worry, the bar will be not closed. So still here. Please take your seats and let's start. With
Yeah, I was worried vouchers will go to waste.
I know,
So,
I know. This is your
Okay.
first concern.
yeah,
Okay.
always.
Like, I want it now. In 15 minutes.
Yeah. Welcome. Thanks for having me, by the way. This is the first time I'm here. I don't know what to expect. You don't know what to expect from me. You've never seen me before speaking, except some people, individuals. And I'm here to tell something about the ways you can fail. So I will not teach you anything necessarily. I will just tell you about other people failing, which is always fun, right? It's we like to see people failing. So yeah, not our mistakes. That's the point, right? So I counted 5, but there is an asterisk to this, and you'll see that the 5th point is actually the reason that there is a secret behind the asterisk, right? And the 5th way of failing is actually the buffer way. The buffer way is we can spend 1 minute on it or an hour or 2, right? So this is like a safe harbor to me. When I'm run out of time, I can just say irrelevant and skip the slide. So my name is Wojciech. We'll get to that in a second. But first, I would like to answer the question, like, why are we here? Free food, drinks, yes. I mean, I came here also for this. But other than that, I believe that what I've seen throughout my professional career, which is not that tremendous, like I don't know how much of it is there is, like 12, 13 years maybe. I've seen people either neglecting networking or thinking that it's going to solve yourself, especially with the cloud, right? Networking in the cloud is like given. This is what I've heard, at least. But what I'm here for is mostly to maybe shed some light on why you should care. I will not give you any technical talks. I will not propose any solutions and patterns. I will just show you that maybe there is a time where you should care. Like at least a second, right? Just spare a thought. Now, we are here to have some fun, learn something new, and realize that importance of network infrastructure. And that's in quotes because I just said that. So it's my quote, but actually that's it. So what I realized some time ago is that in 60 minutes, I cannot teach you too much, right? It's like in 60 minutes, you have Udemy courses that last for hours. And they prepare you for certification that has a blueprint. So I'm not here to teach you anything. That's not my goal. I'd rather spend 60 minutes on having a conversation with you. If you have a very good question, which is a hot topic that most of you are interested in, let's do it. I can actually turn it off and we can discuss it. There is a very convenient button which does this. Let's do it, right? So fun, right? Then learn something. As I said, I'm not here to teach you. I'm rather here to give you stuff, and then you can draw from it, right? If you feel something is useful, then you can actually learn something. If there are some of you that will know everything that I talk about, like, good for you, right? I'm not trying to be omni-knowing, right? There might be people in the crowd that already know everything that I'm going to say. And last thing is what I think, and this is my very subjective opinion, right? So don't take it as an AWS stance. this is my subjective opinion, I think that the networking infrastructure is important, and it will hit you and bite you in the ass if you don't pay attention. If you're an individual builder, you'll see that there are moments when you're worried or you'll regret that, I should have thought about this, right? Because I don't scale or don't do something. So these 3 things, that's a quote. You can quote me on that. So first, what I learned at my first position at Cisco when I was a supporting engineer, there's been the concept of questioning to the void, right? So we didn't take words as granted. So if someone says there is a failure, I'm like, what's the failure, right? Because failure to you and failure to me, 2 different things. So what constitutes a failure during this presentation? And there are some obvious things that constitute a failure. So I will plus all the obviouses right here. I have a pointer. Wow, yeah. So if you know what failure is, it goes in this bucket. I want to talk about all of that, right? This is what I will be focusing on. And there is 4 of them. I will not get too often back to all these 4, but you have to imagine whenever I talk about something, you're like, oh, this is this or that or this, right? I'll try to reference it from time to time, but I will not get back to the slide. So first thing is that your networking might be unoptimized, right? And this is already a failure, right? Because you have a use case, but you just click the button and you created a VPC and you're done. You didn't do any optimization, so by sheer luck, you might be in the right spot. VPC might be good enough for you, but there is a higher chance that you just didn't optimize for what you want. So you can unoptimize for cost, use case, scale, performance, and I hopefully will have examples for all of that if time allows. Really, like customers, enterprise grade, huge customers, just not doing any optimization, not thinking about this. The second one is over engineering, and we all love it. I mean, this is not even a bad thing, right? I mean, if I ask you to raise a hand who likes to spend a little bit more time on doing something that's unnecessarily over-engineered, I'm like, okay, me at least. And I think it's like 90% of you would like to spend some time over-engineering exactly. Thank you. The third thing is unupgradable, and this is the sin that so many people commit. I'm here today. I have to design my infrastructure for a thing, so I'll design an infrastructure for a thing. So what takes a senior architect and distinguish that from everyone else that's below senior is like, oh, no, I have to design for today and for tomorrow, right? I cannot just design for today, because then I commit that everything my business does today, that's it. I'm not growing, I'm not scaling. I just have to do it today, now, and I'm done. To be completely honest, some people are okay with that, right? I don't think my business is going to grow, so I just design for today and let AWS do the magic. Be my guest, right? I mean, and AWS gets some profit, and I'm an employee, so that's good. Now, some networks, and there is one example that I have, are purely impossible. So customer comes to us. I'm from ProServe. You'll see that in a second. And they say, yeah, I would like to have this and that, ABC. And you're like, dude, that's impossible. We cannot do this. Technology doesn't allow us. It's not even a shortcoming of AWS. But there's a question. I'll finish the slide and we'll get to your question. I hope it's controversial. So, and then we try to be as politically correct as we can. And we say, we can do it for you, but not in a form you requested it. We have to change little things, right? Your request is impossible. We have to adjust, right? And this is very often done in networking. Okay, so let's go to the question. Thank you, because I can now.
Yes, so give us a couple of examples of what is impossible for an experienced network engineer in era of complete virtualization. What can be impossible?
We're like 10 minutes in. It's coming. It's like things are coming. I've seen things, and it's coming. So if I do not cover your request from now, get back with the same question, and I'll try to give you another example. I have few examples sprinkled all around the presentation, so I hope it's going to satisfy your need. But yeah, examples is everything that I have. I don't study too much. I usually work with customers. I learn from their experience. I participate in projects. I'm leading the projects. And whenever a customer makes a mistake, I'm like, that's mine. I put it in a pocket and then I can present. So hopefully I will answer your question by just giving a presentation. Is that fine with you? Is it okay? If you're not satisfied, you're like, just express it. Okay, so what constitutes a failure? In my opinion, this, right? And everything else, obviously, right? So now, who's this presentation for? Like, who should be concerned? I believe that all of you have some concept of, networking design is for X, right? You have a guy or a girl that does it. What I think is like this, right? And to prove it, I have hard data. This is something totally made up, but we're getting serious, right? So you have a scale from individual builder. There's a single person doing something in AWS, scaling up to the global enterprise, which might be, let's say, 9, 10 regions, multi-environment, multi-account implementation. And to me, all of them should be concerned, right? None of them should say, and some of them do, it's like, yeah, I just put Kubernetes cluster on it and just, eyeball it, like it's going to be fine. AWS has my hand. Yes, to some point, but at a certain time, you need to worry about that. So I believe that every one of you, if you have anything to do with AWS, you should be concerned about your network infrastructure. There's a question. Let's go.
Here goes the micro.
Thank you.
Yeah, the short question. What's the time when you're an individual builder? When do you concern?
Like, there is so many times. Like, if you put, like, if you have a timeline and you want to put a point where you can realize that it's like, right, this moment. Usually that's when you start paying too much.
Yeah.
Right? That's one of them. The second time, let me think about it. The second best time is when you realize that you've been doing fine, but at some point you just don't know how to do it. You just don't know because you had a business need and you fulfilled that one by one. I can do this, I can do that, I can do this. And at the fourth point, you're like, ooh, okay, I need to get back, right? So this is the second time. The third time is when you consult and some people say, what is this, right? And then like, ooh, no, that's fine. It's like, no, it's not. And they make you realize that it's time to get back, right? So this is 3 from the pocket. There is more, but I believe that what people say is like, when it comes, you'll know. This is how I can phrase it, the best I can, maybe.
What about the pricing? Like, actually, like, what's the amount of traffic?
And there it is, controversial topic.
Yeah. Yeah, what's the amount of traffic you actually need to start worrying about, or like?
But you know what the answer is, right? It depends. It's like to people online. It depends. So I can tell you from my perspective, because I'm an AWS employee, I'm Amazon employee, right? So this is not a secret that I can do weird stuff and not pay for this, just for the sake of innovation or helping the customer. But I also have my personal account, right? So to me, paying $0 is the threshold. If I pay more than 0, that's the time.
Okay.
Right?
Thank you.
And I'm not in the position to tell you, right? You have to assess that. And AWS, I think there is some reputation about cost in the cloud overall, like not just AWS, cloud overall. But we're not hiding it from anyone. We're like, there is a cost calculator, there is a pricing sheet, there is a lot of stuff, but people just don't want to spend time calculating that, right? So the moment of surprise depends on the person. At least this is. It is like everything else, right? Which is pay as much as you use it, and then you're like, I'm using that much, and then it's a unit of measure is dollars. Okay, so now, oh wait, because this is a serious slide.
The cost is
if we get
obvious.
too deep into costs, I would just cut this discussion.
Exactly. This is too obvious because there is also other spectrums like security, like governance, like performance, etc., etc., etc.
Yes.
When people ask about this, if they ask at all,
they ask too late. I think I have some examples that I want to go through when enterprises, not even people, this is not individual builders, this is enterprises going into oh shit moment, right? Where we're there to kind of help them. This is not a one-way door. When you know one-way door and two-way door, do you know the difference? I mean, it's kind of obvious, right? You make a decision and you either can come back or you're done. So we try to recognize the two-way doors and help customers out of them. But I've worked at least with 2 customers that crossed one-way door and they realized that they didn't want to cross it. And there's different situations, but this goes into the realm of risk management and damage control, right? It's no longer architecting, it's damage control. Yeah, okay, there's been another question.
There was a question, no?
Yeah, about the costs. I'm not like 100% sure that AWS is very much transparent, because as far as my experience goes, it's like you basically show the expenses basing on the regions. So if you tried like in 3 different regions and you forgot about one, then you pay like constantly. Okay. I've been there for half a year paying 100 zlotys and I didn't know what for, and then I found in North Carolina and I started something.
Okay, so I will not advocate for cost. I don't think we have time for that. However, you said 2 keywords that I'll use against you, right? So you said that this is your experience, and I completely agree with you. There are like a number of people that have different experiences, and then you say you didn't realize or you forgot or you didn't know about something. It's not the documentation's fault that you didn't realize.
I'm not saying I wasn't informed. I'm saying that when it comes to transparency, it's like I would say you can be more transparent.
Wait. I think, and if I'm too defensive about it, tell me. But I think you're mixing transparency with clarity. Like, if I want to tell you everything that I know, but I'm really bad at it, I just sidetrack. I tell you about my day, and I tell you that world became as a chaos, right? I'm not really clear about what I want to say, but my intention is to say everything that I know. So by transparency, the info is there. If it's put in the way that it's not suit for you, I hear you, I feel you, and I'm kind of in the same spot. As I said, I may have on my own account, and I sometimes like, they should have told me that, right? So I will not put myself in a position of defender, neither offender about that. I just say, I think it's kind of transparent. Sometimes it's just not clear. And sometimes people just don't bother. I'm not saying that's you. I'm just saying that this is what I've seen. And my experience is limited to what I've seen. I don't have any statistically significant data to tell you like you're wrong or you're right. I've seen several customers doing something, so yeah. I hope that's fine. I avoided answering your question, but I don't have any better answer for you. Any other questions? For cost, like let's close this topic and let's move on. Guys, you have to pay for stuff, right? Okay. Okay, so this is when it gets serious. Venn diagram. You know that. So who am I? I started, I believe that this was the best thing that ever happened to me. I started as a support engineer. When people hear support, they cringe. It's like, oh. What I think actually is the best ramp up for anyone to get into technology. Every single customer that you deal with, every single customer is pissed off, right? Because something doesn't work. They never contact you to say, dude, wow, this product is so good. Thank you. You can close the ticket, right? This just doesn't happen. Every single customer, and there is always a spectrum of customers, and some of them are like straight to the chase saying, you screwed me, fix this. And there are some who are polite saying, we're losing millions and everything's on fire, but it's fine. Right? So if you have time, and maybe you can join the call.
Wojtek, Wojtek, we have one question from the internet.
Wow, internet people.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're spoken.
Scary. They're scary.
So Julia is asking you, which of the three pillars would you cover? It would be security, cost, or scalability. Which of them would be the most covered today?
All of them. I mean, security is going to be the funniest one. I kind of reverse it on his head. You'll see. But security, I would say. All of them but security.
Okay.
The answer I would like to give is yes. So
it depends.
So basically, I've been on-prem support. I've been support engineer, and I've been digging deep into routers and switches. So I gained a lot of experience just doing that, right? That was enterprise. So something that that was Cisco, by the way. Then I moved on, and I licked a little bit of hybrid. I became a tech lead for cloud for SD-WAN solution of Cisco's. That was 3 years of my life, and I transitioned from listening to people complaining every single day to people saying, just do it for me, right? Just how do you do this? How do I take my on-prem and effectively connect that to cloud, right? So I spent 3 years doing that. The GTM is go-to-market, by the way. So I was kind of ahead of a curve. I knew what's coming, so I could talk to partners and to the customers about the things that haven't been released yet, but I could do this, right? So I had some on-prem experience, and I had some hybrid experience, and then I became cloud senior infrastructure architect. This is what I am right now. Just to add for clarity, I started my own networking specialization within infrastructure architecture, which is, we call it platform. So you can see that right in the middle, I kind of have touched all of the worlds, on-prem and hybrid and cloud. And I just allowed myself to talk about this. I've seen all sides of the spectrum, and now I kind of understand what on-prem people feel and what's in the middle, what's on the other end, right? So that's me. I don't think there are any questions about that, right? Maybe cost? No one? Okay. I dodged the bullet. So now, very quickly, what's here? It's I will not be talking about things that you can find in Google. We're going off Google because then why bother? Why would you come here? That's obvious, right? Now, everything what I say is going to be on the customer experience I had. Maybe some other people, but I will impose that it was me. And again, this is kind of important for legal reasons. You'll not see any customer names, locations, anything, right? It's just been retracted from the presentation. I don't care for timing, so if you have questions, let's go. As I said, magic button, we can just have a discussion. And at the end, it's mnemonics. I expect that all of you know what mnemonic is, but there's a Wikipedia definition to be smart, right? I Googled it. It's basically some tool, some device to help you understand. So you'll see me talking about some side story more than the topic itself, but trust me, that will burn into your brain more than if I tell you what are the limits of transit gateway in a single region, right? If I tell you the story, it's going to be much better. There's going to be anecdotes, quotes, hyperbolas, stuff. Yeah. So the first way, that's a term I coined today when I put this presentation together. Legs of a snake. You may already see the contradiction. Legs of a snake. So what that is, and that's security. To Julia, shout out to you. That's about the security. So what I've seen customers doing a lot, is protecting themselves against something that cannot really happen. So this is why I came up with the quote. And you see that this is Michael. You cannot attack legs of a snake, right? Because it doesn't have legs. So if you have an application that's basically going to be exposed on port 443, HTTPS for not savvy, and this is the only thing you do, why do you create this? Why the hell do you need this, right? Your snake does not have legs. They cannot be attacked, right? we can kind of analyze this. But if you're not familiar with all of the services around it, and by the way, that's going to work perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong explicitly about this infrastructure. Yes, exactly. Like some people like to put legs on a snake, right? Have you ever heard a term doomsayer? The doomsayer is a person who basically says that the end of time is coming. You have to prepare. And there are different variations of doom. There's a doomsday, there is a doom rising and stuff. Some people just like tragedies and they prepare for stuff. So you can see that this is your device under test, right? This is 443. So you created all of this to serve your website through HTTPS. And if you turn it on, I guarantee it's going to work. Your cost, okay, right? But it's going to work. What the problem is with legs of a snake is that if you're an enterprise and you invest millions of dollars into your infrastructure, you may not notice this anomaly, right? It will be lost in the costs because it's not millions of dollars, it's like thousands, right? But it will get lost on a bill. So you may not even realize that you did a boo-boo, Howie. So what you can do instead, you can say like, okay, it's a snake, it doesn't have legs. Ta-da, right? It's not comprehensive, but for 99% of use cases, that's fine. You have your security layer. You're using CloudFront to hide your ALB in the private subnet. You have a security group. And by the way, there are ACLs everywhere, right? So you're fine. Now, let's get back. Slow-mo. Bam, right? Thousands of dollars are getting eaten because you were just afraid of attacks that cannot even be performed on your infrastructure. Now, you can do this. However, what I anticipated, and there might have been a question like this, right? We've seen things, and world is a weird place. So what if my snake has legs? What could be a snake leg? What could it be? Like, do you have an idea? What would this be? And in the meantime, I will just drink. I came up with 2 examples. This is not an exhaustive list, but 2 examples. One of them, how do you say this beautiful word? Vulnerability. You get
vulnerability.
Thank you. Right? So this is the thing that you don't know of. You expect your service to work like it was documented for, but suddenly there is a, wow, I won't shout anymore, maybe. Thank you. So, yeah, so if there is a service or technology and you think that it works in a way, but then it misbehaves, this is kind of legs for a snake, right? If there is a backdoor to the service, you have to anticipate. But trust me, if you're interested in the snake, you'll know it has legs, right? It's so easy to Google, okay, I'm about to deploy a thing. Let me Google if there are any active vulnerabilities that I have to protect myself against, right? It's not that hard. So this is one pair of legs. The other one is, how do I say it politically correct? Like, you're not the guy. You just don't know what you're doing. Sometimes you are tasked with deploying too much, and your expertise includes most of the things that you're about to do, but not everything. So there is this one thing that you're not sure about, but you're not really ready to admit that you don't know this. So this might be the legs that Snake has, right? So you don't know that you have to protect yourself. But this is also easy to overcome, but just like learning, right? Googling, trying to look at the documentation. So snakes and legs, remember that, right? Mnemonic device.
There is also a suggestion from internet from Julia.
Suggestion. Julia is amazing, by the way.
Yeah, that you can maybe expose something from the code. And I will add on that maybe we forgot that we left something in our services or code or anything.
That's completely true. I think that creating an infrastructure is it's never a safe place. There's usually a thread in the back of your head just repeating like, did you think of everything? Really? Like, did you think of everything? What about this? What about that? Like, releasing an infrastructure to production is extremely stressful. Trust me. I've been with the customers for at least several times, and there's never a guy who's like, enter. Like, there's always hesitation, right? So that's true. But I would say demystifying the whole thing, it's worth doing instead of just being stuck in fear that I have to like do this, right? I'm prepared for everything. Someone just breaks through here. I'm like, inspection and deep packet inspection, right? I spend money and then private link and stuff. This is all good services, but maybe not necessarily something that you have to use. Sorry? You're never prepared. That's why monitoring and observability is a thing, but we will not talk about this. Okay, and I don't want to discourage you from doing this. If you feel that this is your business case, be my guest, do it, right? I'm not trying to say that this is wrong. This is a proper infra that might be fitting for your business. Okay, the third and the second way, and we have a short story to say. It's a story time. So what I find really hard conveying to some people, which I call customers, is it's totally different, right? But not in the way you think it is. So let's imagine that, okay, you have a life, and then from time to time you have to go for a vacation to recharge. Someone just fall asleep. Okay. You have to recharge. Usual way of doing this, going for a vacation, and then your go-to mode was all-inclusive, I don't know, Egypt, right? So you did it over time. And you did it 10 years, 12 years, and you've always been there with your family, your friends. And suddenly you're like, you know what? I'm not really recharged anymore. I need to change something about this. So you try different countries, and then you quickly realize that it's not, okay, that's not the thing, right? I don't get recharged to 100%. So you decide to go for a road trip, right? Amazing. So I will change more than just a country. No more all-inclusive. I will just go for a road trip. And then you're surprised that you have to cook your own meals. Come on, right? It's like you should have predicted that. You should have known that all-inclusive gives you pre-cooked meals. Now you're on a road trip, so you have to cook for yourself. And some people are surprised by that. And you might wonder, it's like, okay, that's silly. They should have known. Like it's so obvious. Same moving from on-prem to cloud, or cloud to on-prem. That's like no difference. Certain things change, and I found customers really surprised by that. So what I say, the first story is the holidays, right? Now, this happened to networking. This exact change happened to networking. So we used to have a black box. I think I need to drop the pointer. So we used to have a black box, like a router or switch. Imagine a router on a switch. So black box was really good at pushing packet this way and pushing it out the other way to the direction where it was supposed to go. That was perfect. Then we realized that we can actually buff it up. So we can take ASICs or like dedicated hardware and make switching light fast, right? But then we thought to ourselves, what about the control plane? And then we say, what did I say, plane? So we divided devices into planes, right? So suddenly a single device became a control plane and a data plane that could scale separately, right? So you can have to picture that. Now, some other smart people came into the game and realized that, okay, if they're separate, so maybe I can actually disperse them in geographically, so they don't have to be in a single device. That was so amazing. And slowly but surely, we came from appliance-based networking and infrastructure to fabric-based networking infrastructure. Fabric-based means that I have my control plane and I have my data plane, which are basically coupled together through some API or maybe some protocol. However, they live separate. What I can tell you I've been in is SD1, right? Software-defined wide area networks. There's a control plane that some people decided to move to AWS, but everything that was concerned with data was somewhere on the ground on-prem, right? So we just basically decoupled them. And this evolved and evolved and evolved. And then what we got at is distributed platforms. So basically we have a platform that's nowhere, but it's everywhere, right? It's not a device, it's not an appliance. It's basically like a system that's distributed. What we called it at the first time was decentralized platforms, which they didn't catch up. Now we call it distributed, which is much better word. And for clarity, who knows what is the translation for fabrics into Polish? It's fabryka, and it's, I hate it. It's like, it's not a factory, right? It's supposed to be like a blanket or something, but okay, that's just my rant. So we have distributed platforms, and then distributed platforms enabled cloud even more, right? And now we have a problem because people who existed in old all-inclusive Greece now have to face road trip. They can do hybrid, so 1 week all-inclusive, the second week we're going for a road trip, but it takes some mental change. And they have to realize we're no longer in appliance mode, we have distributed platforms. So what does it create? Two problems. And these problems have a real effect on the design that networking engineers do. One of them is they try to recover from a wrong disaster. What if my transit gateway goes down? Your region is down, right? Transit gateway is not a device, it's a distributed platform. It's really hard to disable your transit gateway. If that happens, 99% that the whole region is just down. We love the Godzilla analogy, so Godzilla came and destroyed the whole region, right? So they prepare for wrong disasters. The third way to fail is a legacy stall. You didn't realize that the protocol that you've been using in your network are no longer good. And you know an example of the protocol that puts you in legacy stall? I think you'll all be surprised, but this is IPv4. IPv4 is the best and the worst thing that ever happened to networking, right? I'll tell you why in a second. Do you have any questions to the holidays analogy? We'll get into this three in a second. There is an example of a network that I created. I hope I retracted all of the customer information from it. And this is right. What problems do you see here?
Should I start with every service?
I know that was like hypothetical question, but maybe. So this icon is not a device, right? This is a transit gateway, and transit gateway is a globally significant construct. That is a distributed platform. You might be surprised that behind transit gateway, you have a fleet of routers and switches that constitute a transit gateway. So asking questions like, oh, what if it goes down? Again, like if this goes down, all of it is down. You don't worry about this because everything else is down, right? You're asking wrong questions, right? But you didn't change your mind model. So you're designing for different failures, for wrong failures, actually, right? You came from different world, and now you have to adjust. And I'm not saying that your thinking is bad. Your thinking is good, but in somewhere else. Here, you have to think about this as a distributed platform. I kind of blamed Raw.io that there's no way to show that this is a distributed platform. But honestly speaking, if you look at all of this, rarely anything here is a device, right? It's all distributed platforms. I don't want to speak for everything because I didn't analyze it that much, but I would say that everything here is just distributed. It doesn't fail because device goes down. And this is what I've seen as the biggest mistake when there is a senior architect coming in and they say, look what we have, do the same in cloud. And I'm like, no way, right? This won't work because you have switches and you have routers and you have load balancers, and your load balancer is here. I can put my hand on your load balancer, right? That's already a thing. You cannot put hand on any of this because this is multiple devices just working together, cloud, control plane, data plane. So this is the second way that you can fail, not changing your mind, thinking about, so I don't have to worry about the redundancy of it because cloud vendor already deals with that. I have to worry about different things, right? So you design for the wrong failure. Now, wait, I'll move back a little bit. So then we have a legacy stall. What legacy stall is basically you use the protocol that might have been good or bad at the time when it actually came into place, but haven't predicted cloud. Just as simple as this. IPv4 is not suited for a cloud. You know why? No one uses IPv4 in a pure form. We have load balancers that are exposed with what, right? FQDNs. We have CloudFront. We have global accelerators. We have all of the add-ons to IPv4 just to deal with IPv4. We created N-iX because we have IPv4 and didn't support what we wanted. The problem that customers have is, for example, I have two pieces of my system that are coupled together with IPv4 that they point one on another, right? Like fixed IP in your code. I hope that when you hear fixed IP in a code, you're like, oh, that's really bad. Yes, it is. But if you look at customers that want to migrate to cloud, they don't even realize that. They're like, oh, yeah, I want to have this IP. And yeah, put it up. And like, okay, so how do we do this? And it's like, no, so pick it up and just put it up, right? So then we have, if we anticipate that the design and deployment and POC and MVP will take a month, we get to the point when you're like, okay, so what about your DNS infrastructure? And if customers' answer is like, what DNS infrastructure? We're like, ooh, we need to add a month right now, like from this point. You don't using DNS? Yeah, we're based on IPs. Because my database and my compute was in the same subnet. So I didn't bother, right? I just pointed right at it. It's next to me, right? I can put a finger on my database and I can put a finger on my load balancer. They touch each other in the same rack. So legacy stall is exactly this, right? So if you don't think about this, there are ways to avoid it, but try to understand what you're doing with your network in terms of the legacy protocols, and don't take it as granted. Like IPv4, like, whoa, the best thing ever. Not necessarily. Has a lot of shortcomings, and we try to cover them, but not everything can be fixed. Any questions? I'll put this on before we move to the fourth way you can fail. Yes.
Two questions.
He has to have like 2 gadgets or something.
No.
I send you this, you can use it.
Yeah. First question will be about the elastic IP doesn't solve the problem. Bit of a joke, but
what elastic IP is, okay, we have to think about the use case first. So let me tell you why elastic IP does not solve your issues, where, for example, you had an on-prem service that's been exposed to the load balancer, to the external world, and this load balancer was basically DNS'd out to the whole world. Like BGP has advertised it and like, oh, this load balancer is over here. Now, this IP of this load balancer, because you use IP, of course, right, is fixed. So every sub-service or the third-party service that want to leverage your service has to go to you, not through FQDN, but through the IP, right? So now there is a challenge of not only the migrating it, because you're moving IP that cannot be changed. You cannot have multiple IPs. If router gets multiple IP advertisement at the same time, it does 2 things. One, it gets crazy. It's like routing loop, shut down, right? And the second thing is like, oh, I'm going to load balance that now. I'm going to send 1 packet here and 1 packet there, right? Because I saw 2 IPs that's been advertised to me in general, right? So you cannot simply take the IP, shut down the load balancer, and put it into the cloud. You can actually do it preemptively. So you can put this IP here, not let them talk one to another, and then shut this down, turn this on, and everything's going to be fine. No, right? And this is based on elastic IPs, right? And elastic IP is basically something that AWS knows that it's its own and can advertise it to the BGP to outer world, right? This is what, in this case, it's not the definition of elastic IP. For this case, elastic IP won't help. It's like your infra is so bad that we just cannot help you. You can use global accelerator then and Anycast, but it still takes few people to do it. Everyone has to monitor. So I would say elastic IP is great for some things, but it will not fix your legacy stall. If you're just too tightly coupled for IP, you never use DNS, you never use load balancing, which is like dynamic. No help. You have to refactor your application, right? That would be my.
Yeah, and I got a second one also. Like, I got
a challenge.
Second question about, basically you showed us that diagram of distributed system.
Yeah, okay.
This one, right? And you said that nothing of all those can be like failed because they're redundant. They're in different zones, right? And my question is also regarding the previous presentation from Andrii. How can the step function have like 99.9% availability? What's about the other nines? What can be the issue if the services are distributed? There's like no physical.
I don't think I can speak for that. I mean, what makes it 99? For step function, I would just back off and say, I just don't know. For any other service, that's usually, like what's availability? Is availability that the service is up, or is availability very specific to you, right? Because if it is to you, then sometimes, for example, there's an advertisement. So you attach something to Transit Gateway, and it has to rework the route table, right? In this, like while you do this, you send a packet and it gets lost because Transit Gateway is still a device somewhere there, right? The routing has to be updated, etc., and you lose it. This is already service unavailable for this single packet, right? So I'm just making it up right now because I just don't know. But I assume there are things like this that I cannot predict that will not make it 100%. There's been a question here.
Yeah,
first.
there was a question first.
And I bet Julia has one.
Yep. So actually, 99.9 is because you get lambdas what is left from normal EC instances. So there are some moments in time when everything is. That's why you get no service.
Okay. I don't know. I would love it to be 100%, but yeah.
So from another perspective, you said that you have a lot of experience with customers, right?
Wow. Okay.
And now you mentioned this mental shift, which is quite important. So how you deal with people who want you to deliver the IP? They need to clear the IP for your container, or even for Lambda function, because the network security, right?
Wait, do I get a question? I mean, can I give you like a very generic answer to how I deal with a mental shift for a customer? I'm usually very uncomfortable with them. Like I make them feel uncomfortable because I take them so far back saying, guys, let's stop for a second and let me tell you a story. Like, honestly, I sometimes, that's why I like to talk to CXO level people. They don't have this bias for technicalities. They're like, oh, wait, just tell me how to do it. Like, tell me what API have I sent, blah, 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 right? This is great. I'm the guy who does that. But sometimes it just takes a guy who doesn't understand it, but understands the notion and motion of the team or organization. And then when he listens, what I like to call it is a leverage of power, right? I don't deal with that. I take a guy who owns money and say, dude, mind shift change. And he's like, what? And I'm like, yeah. and he does it, right? So it's more like a recognizing your targets. I don't think I have power to explain mind shift to number of developers who are like smarter than me, right? I'm talking to them. It's like, yeah, we know. I was like, I'm not getting to them. I feel like it. So let me take the guy who owns the money and talk to him and give him the benefits and tell him what he has to do. And next meeting we have with developers, suddenly everyone is on my page, right? So that's like a no, it works. Actually, it works. So I have no incentive in like selling you stuff. So I rather let you guys be on AWS than buy something and then say, oh, that's so expensive, right? So this is a different game I play, at least. So I like to go to the high level guys and just tell them, like, let's talk philosophy, business. Right? Yeah. Was there any other question? Julia? No? Julia, are you still there? Yeah. Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I can just add one thing,
hey,
especially IPs, because that's what I really liked in cloud. A lot of companies, rather than use VPNs or something like that, started using security groups with the allowing for whole networks to access their machines. For example, by whitelisting whole IP addresses of all of EC2 plane. So their security was like, I can just boot up new EC2 and I can access their machines, their private machines. So
now there's been an announcement that you can access EC2 in a private subnet without a public IP.
Yeah, but you
go and test yourself.
You had bastions, you had SSA.
Yeah, that's yeah.
But
you don't have it here. So fourth way. So this is another creation of mine. There is a good reason why you don't fly a duck to the moon. It flies, it quacks, but it cannot fly to the moon. So what does it mean? I think you already anticipate where this goes in. We have a top ducks of AWS networking, and my favorite by far is this beauty over here. So I can tell about this duck is that it's really good. It's really good at the thing. It's really good at being a duck. It's really good at being a VPC peering, right? So if you have a VPC and then you have another VPC and you're like, oh, I would like this to be like a 1, you peer them. But if you have 300 VPCs and someone else have more than you, and there's one guy who's like, oh, I have 2, can I be peered, right? You don't peer them anymore. This duck is no longer of use because you're going to the moon. So pick a rocket ship. Just drop the duck, right? So everything in AWS, to my opinion, is a duck. So it has some use if it's used to be a duck. But if you want to do something else, just look for something else. What distributed platforms gave us, which is extremely important in the cloud, is that you can actually build a system or an offering that solves single problem, right? So if you go back to the times when I can speak from Cisco experience, routers of Cisco's are so buffy. Like there's everything in them, which is really cool, right? But in cloud, you don't have to do this. Cisco does it because there is a reason for doing it, and all of the competitors of theirs do it because they cannot. They're not agile enough to just give you a single problem solution. They have to give you everything in a bundle. Say, this is a router that can do everything, and it will make you sandwich and wake you up because it has a snoozer, right? In cloud, you can say, oh, okay, so there is 2 VPCs, and someone didn't think about, merging them together. Oh, VPC peering, right? Let's give it a name and let's use it. So there is a purpose for VPC peering. We call it purposefully built or purposefully designed, right? So transit gateway is no different, right? Transit gateway solves certain questions, and if someone comes to me and say like, transit gateway doesn't do SPF, and I'm like, it doesn't because it's a different problem that it solves, right? Like maybe if there is a customer push to have a solution to a certain problem, we'll introduce another service. So what I suggest is every single time you try to use a service, try to understand what problem does it solve. And if it doesn't fit You can still use it, but maybe there's something better. So a good example of it is Transit Gateway Cloud One, right? Some people like, what's the difference, right? Why this, why that? And there is a good reason why these two are, separate products, separate solutions. Now, Cloud One, segments. We'll get there in a second, but this drives me crazy. How people use this. The segment, this word is nightmare fuel, right? And again, like this is another one. So my approach here is this: show me deck, and I tell you what is this moon, right? Don't use it for it. VPC peering, I love this. When I see a design which just peers to the bone, it's like hardcore peers. It works, but it has its limits, right? So this is the fourth way. And we have fifth way, which had an asterisk. And I told you that there is a way to do it. This is just a list of things that couldn't get their own section. So this is basically honorable mentions, right? So this is infamous list of please don't. So the first thing that is a please don't is cloud native architecture. You probably heard about cloud native. There is a cloud native. I just made it up, but it makes sense. So for example, what I see every single time when someone owns a firewall, firewall is an appliance. So what appliance makes you do, you have to take a cable, which is a real thing, and you have to plug it into the appliance, right? So what it forces you to do is to have a DMZ. Why DMZ is a thing? Because you cannot, now you kind of can, but the beginnings of the DMZ were that it was all appliance based. So the cable was real. So if I wanted my switch to be protected, I had to make it all the way to the firewall somehow. So it didn't make sense to put a firewall over there and some over there and one over there, right? It made all sense to put it in one place and then drag all the cables in and call it DMZ, right? You don't have to do it anymore in cloud. Distributed platforms. Some people are so uncomfortable of dragging their firewall presence next to the VM. It's like, what? The unsecured traffic is so close. Yeah, but it's going to the firewall and back. Don't worry. That's fine. Now, this is something I hate, and this is basically evangelism from my point. It's like, don't take it as like I do it now and I don't care anymore. Try to revisit, try to go in this famous cycle of, how to evolve. But I move on, and this is something that I kind of laugh at when I hear, like, can this endpoint be a bit further, like in the different VPC, or maybe we can like stretch it a bit. Like, people kind of think visually that if something's in the VPC, it can, I don't know, leak out and attack my EC2. I don't know where this comes from, but the diagrams kind of destroy the conversation sometimes, especially when it's a distributed platform and there's an icon. It's like, what if this fails? What if this is too close? This is distributed platform, right? So there is a ground native architecture. Try to think differently with everything what I said already. Try to get out of this mind. This is perfect when you're on-prem, and I'm not saying this is bad. This is not something that is bad. This is good when the time needs it, but in cloud, that's a wrong approach, right? Now, the next one is security by routing, right? It's like, I have Cloud One, so I just send everything to Cloud One, and I deal with my security over there. It's like routing protocols were never designed to be for security. They were designed to route packets. And to some, that's a surprise, right? So don't do your security by routing. Like, think why you do certain things. Even if your answer is like, oh, it's going to be more secure. Okay, but can you do it cheaper somewhere else? Can you just put a security group and block all of it right at the source? Why do you send it to Cloud One? Why do you send it to Transit Gateway? And the better one is this. Ooh, this is. When we introduced Cloud One, we gave you segments. And people say, so I can segment my traffic? It's like, yes, you can segment, but this is not separation. Segmentation is not separation, right? And so many customers just use it this way. Segmentation is not separation. This is something I have a help with. So agoraphobia is basically being scared of public places. So I've seen customers that say, internet breakout in workload VPC? It has to be like, woo! If you show me the diagram, it has to be at least 30 centimeters this way, right? Don't put it next to my EC2. It's not how it works in cloud, right? No cables anymore. It's all distributed. It's basically the use of it. And you can actually secure your workloads fine while having a breakout just next to your workload, right? Depends on how you use it, right? But that's one of the engineering. I think this is almost the last one. People are surprised that cloud services have limits. Yes, they do. It's still some physical things behind it. You cannot just say, it's going to scale to the moon. Kind of, but it has its limits. And different limits surprise people to the point where they're like, why is there a limit like this? Right? They ask this question, why there's a limit? I could have done it without limits, right? And it's like, but there is a limit, right? So you have to pay attention. And the last one, unsolvable problem. Who owns the box? Who owns the service? Because if I own it, then I use it, and I have to pay for it. And these three things are not the same. You can actually have a device in an account, pay for it, let someone else manage it, and someone even different use it. This is doable in cloud. I went through the customer implementation when customers said everything networking has to be in the networking account and only networking account can use it. I'm like, no. The first part of the sentence, really good. The second part is like, just share the resource. Other people can use it. And this is usually not a problem. This is a blocker. This is easy to solve, but it takes time. And we have to just explain that. And basically, that would be it. I'm almost on time, just 2 minutes. And that would be it. So, whoa, Michał has a question.
No, so sorry, the first question was from internet.
Julia. Thank you, Julia.
You guessed.
How do we send the gadget to her?
I don't know. How?
Yeah. Internet magic, yeah.
So the question is, do you have an experience training on-prem engineers to the cloud, like who are thinking on-prem and you are...
Okay, so how I like to think about my engagements with customer is that I actually train them. I kind of embark on every project with the customer with a mindset of there's going to be things that will not fly, and I'm here to train them, not only create a design, not only like lead other people to implement it, but also spend time on education. This is like a core factor of how I deal with customers. And actually, you might think of it like, wow, but no, it's egoistic, right? It helps me. Try to talk to someone who doesn't understand the technology you try to talk about to him, right? Like first, give him knowledge, and then you can be on the same level. So I believe that yes. The answer is yes. Every single engagement is an educational chance for me with the customer.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So that was the first one.
Thank you. I have two questions. Two questions.
Okay.
Yes. Take a sip. So one is this one-time job. Let's imagine you have transit gateway. When is the right time to consider moving to Cloud One? What is the criteria?
Wow, tough one. So what I like to say, and just don't quote me on that, stop the recording, is I like to think about 3 transit gateways as a cutoff moment when you start thinking about this. Not switching just yet. You think about this. I'm already in 3 regions. And if you take Transit Gateway and Cloud One and you think about differences between them, the main difference is that Cloud One was built to let you establish regional presence like this, right? So I'm in 3 regions. I want to be in the 4th region. I just added to the policy, and suddenly I'm in the 4th region. To let Cloud One be this tool to allow you to do that, the cost factors are different. I don't know if you've seen the document, cost factors of Cloud One. So sending data between regions is almost free. It's a presence that costs you. That's different to transit gateway. Transit gateway presence is like, okay, hourly base something. But if you want to send traffic across regions, you have to pay for that. So the more regions you add, the more sense it makes to switch, right? And I like to think about 3 regions as the moment when you're like, okay, should I switch? But there is no hard line which says, no, it's the moment. But 3, take 3 and use it. Thank you. I already used that. I don't know how many times. I don't think I have to listen to questions because I can just. Yeah, it depends. There's the second one.
The second question is more kind of general. So we have these ways to fail, and sometimes the failure is just the outage. And let's say we have certain services that go down for certain periods. There is Cisco Thousand Eyes that is monitoring the availability and so on. And if some services go down, is it likely because of the bad design, because of these factors not incorporated, or it might be something that couldn't be avoided by this particular service design?
I think your question triggered the air conditioning. It doesn't really like. I don't know if there is an answer that I can give you about it. Like if service goes down, this is major, right? You have nothing to do with this. I don't think you can be smart enough to design your network so sinister that will bring down the service, right? It's like, I'll just do this, and there is a code of like doing it, connecting. So I wouldn't blame you for the service downtime. You can protect yourself with high availability. Many services of AWS have just built in, and we even encourage you, like, just put it in different regions, right? You may say, I don't have enough money to do this, and that's a fair reason, but nothing stops you from protecting yourself from region downtime, like this. But yeah, if you ever create an infrastructure that has a consistent rate of putting service down, call me. that's we have to document it.
Okay, next question.
Do you think that building infrastructure as simple as it can be will avoid us to make any troubleshooting or any other problems in the future?
Okay, so have you heard of KISS? Yeah, of course. Everett. Keep it simple, stupid. To people who don't. I live by this. I believe that if something can be simplified, should be simplified. And now, will this protect you from failures? No. Do you need to troubleshoot when something fails? Yes. Will it be simpler? Yes. It's not one-to-one, but I bet that on average, the simpler architecture you have, the simpler troubleshooting you need to do. Yeah, that's just my take on this.
So, any more questions? Okay.
I'm done, so.
Yeah, a quick one from my side. That was a good note about the build, use, and manage. Yeah. That's not equal. As I recall, there is a good practice from AWS, which is AWS landing zone, to have a separate account for the networking part, like the shared networking or the shared infrastructure. Just from your experience, I understand that for sure each account or the workforce account would still contain some parts of the networking, like the VPCs, configuration of them, and so on. But still, would you recommend to have a separate team to manage the core networking part of the product?
Yeah, you just open the can of worms. So landing zone, for clarity, is just a concept. So landing zone is like a concept of how do I want to kickstart my infrastructure to let people embark on it easy. So for example, I have a bunch of developers. One of the concepts is, for example, the vending machine. So I have a foundational infrastructure, and then someone comes in and is like, I would like to develop a platform, and you just press a button, and then, hey, VPC, and they're connected to Cloud1, right? So this is landing zone, and the name is really good for that. Now, how do you design your landing zone is something that I actually work with. This is my job to help customers discover what the landing zone is going to be best for them. There's no single staple that you can put on and say, just use this. There are some best practices though. Well-architected framework is one of them. But for example, you have a document which is named, if you Google it, I believe you're going to find it like a first or second response is multi-account landing zone, AWS, right? So you go there and they tell you like, do this, do that. But for example, what I like to do with my customers is understand how they work. The good example is security networking. You may ask yourself, should I have a separate account for networking and security? Or maybe that should be a single account, right? My question to the customer is like, how do you work? Do you have a separate guy for security, separate for network? Do you even have separate departments? Because if you do, that makes total sense to give them their own account and these people their own account. But if this is single persona that basically do all of it, just give them single account, like infra, for example, right? That's not the end of the story. Then they're like, oh, finally we know. It's like, no, what do you plan in 5 years? Because now you have a guy who does security networking, perfect. Just give him single account and he'll do all of it like a multi-tool. But if you plan to grow, and if you plan to create a networking division and security division, maybe it makes sense to already here put some inconvenience on the guy and say, if you want to do security, you assume this role, then you get back, and then you assume networking role, right? So a little inconvenience for you, but we're prepared. So depends. But what we like to do is work backwards. So we ask customers, they're usually surprised, like, I ask them, how do you work? It's like, oh, he cares, right?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we've got the question here from the computer.
Whoa.
And you will be surprised.
Okay.
Because it's from Kaya.
Okay.
Do you still try to avoid legacy network thinking when customer has hybrid cloud?
Do you? Kaya, okay. Wait, can you read it again?
Do you still try to avoid legacy network thinking when customer has hybrid cloud?
Oh, yes, like 100%. So what hybrid is, and I think people have to realize that hybrid networking is just a transport, right? So I have my stuff here on-prem, and it can work perfectly fine. And then suddenly I have a cloud. And what we called everything in between is hybrid networking, right? But it's just a way of getting from here to there. So keep your legacy here, keep your cloud native there. And everything in between, this can be SD-WAN, this can be, for example, DX site links, this can be pure internet. It doesn't really matter. The problem becomes when there's a clash. Clash can happen in IPv4. For example, I have one IPv4 here, and I have the same IPv4 over there. I cannot let them meet because they will explode. Right? So how do I deal with that? But that's nothing to do, that has nothing to do with legacy versus, I don't even call it legacy. I don't think we'll ever get rid of some constituted protocols that have been burned into internet, not at least in 100 years. Like there's still going to be something that has to be there, like BGP.
Okay, any questions from the room?
I'm out of water, so questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, so
we still have quiz.
We still have quiz, and could you put the Safari, please? Or Safari, or wherever you have opened the StreamYard.
You have to change what you are sharing.
All right. Yeah. In a moment, it will appear the. Could you share that? Perfect. Yeah. So the QR. I encourage to try if you want to answer some questions from the presentations and then get some vouchers for the best answers, of course, right? So the thing is, guys and girls, I think we are getting to the end. The last presentation was very good. I thank you very much. And it's a pleasure. Well, the gadgets for the people who ask the most question. Come on, you can stand up. It's just like it's gonna be fast, right? Thank you very much. It was amazing questions. Thanks. It's from Nix, our sponsor. So another, who is another one?
I think the last.
Please, please.
There was a lot of questions here.
Perfect.
I have to decide which one. How many? Okay,
no, it's
so
just, you know, like we like you or
here.
not, right? And yep, congrats, guys. And this is for you, sir. I will not give you a community day because you have it already, right? So, and we have 3 from basically something what we have from community days. And who else? I think you, sir. You ask some questions, and as well, you have a very good presentation. So you will get very good baseball hat for a summer. It's a good one. Socks. Everybody loves socks, right? Who else, my dear?
Again, the last.
Please. You just all take the guys from the last band.
Well,
Deep
they
Racer.
were asking
Cool one, huh?
questions. What I can say.
All right. All right. And who else we have?
Behind you.
No, it's you.
Behind
It's you, buddy.
Behind you.
I know.
The cost guy.
The cost guy. But
You get one already?
yeah, he got one already, but he get another one, right? You get another one, buddy. Come on, you ask 8 questions. I calculated. Woo! Guys, thank you very much. 65th meeting. We will meet after the summer holidays, okay? The summer holidays is a period when everybody wants to chill out, go to holidays, cook for themselves a meal, and be surprised, right? And I think we want to enjoy it. And thank you very much for coming here. It was a blast. And we wish you a happy vacations. Yeah? Oh, you're just turning it like crazy. You make a BGP spander. All right. Thank you very much. It was a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
We will write to the people who get the vouchers, okay? Because it's going to be faster this way. We have? Yeah.
Last moment.
Last moment. We have it already. We have it already. Okay, so I will read it out. Okay, so who get the vouchers? It's Jay McCarrick. Yulia. Hey, it's Yulia. Come on, Yulia, get the vouchers. Disen. I'm sorry, no, Delek Krzemiński and Kurowartem. Okay, three people get the vouchers. So we will send you over emails. Yeah, we'll send you out the email. Don't worry. Thank you very much and see ya.